Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from around the world. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Alu Sise, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program. Well, on the 15th of this month, the Gambia's Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs, Honorable C.D. Keita, tabled before lawmakers a national budget estimates of $52 billion for 2025 fiscal year, compared to the approved $42 billion for 2024. Well, in laying the budget estimates before lawmakers, the Honorable Minister said the budget is anchored on what he called reduction of debt vulnerability and investment in human capital through domestic resources mobilization, supporting the compensation of the core civil service, and investing in the priority sectors such as education, health, and agriculture. Well, joining me this week to discuss this budget, I have in the studio Mar Nyang, who is the Executive Director of Gambia Participatory, a civil society organization. Mar, good to have you on the program once again.
It's a pleasure to be back here, Aliu.
To start with, let's look at the involvement of the civil society in the preparation of the budget. How were you involved?
So this year, what we normally do before, we will support National Assembly in a budget retreat, right? Which has phased out. But what we are doing right now as civil society is doing analysis of what the government is proposing in their executive budget proposal, and then doing a comparative analysis between the previous years, how the revenue flow has been and how the expenditure flow has also been. But most importantly as well, we are getting into the details, right, and then flagging certain issues that citizens do not get to see. Expenditures which includes personal emoluments, expenditure that also includes vehicle purchase, lubricants, and then also travels, etc. So all of these we are doing analysis and also putting it out for the people to know how their taxes that they pay are being spent.
And looking at this, will you say the budget actually reflected the concerns of Gambians? Or did it address the concern of Gambians?
No.
Let's now look back at 2024 first before we get into the 2024.
No, our budget is not prepared in a way that it addresses the core issues that citizens face. And I said this because there are several issues that the citizens are encountering in every fiscal year, right? Whether the budget directly addressing here means you addressing the problem and then maintaining, the status quo in preventing that problem from surfacing again. But if you go down to our settlements, you get to realize that these problems are not actually addressed. Problems like health, they are not addressed. We still have a very weak and vulnerable health system. Today, if you are hit with another pandemic, are we going to be prepared in addressing it? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
And issues of road infrastructure, right? In our rural settlements in the Greater Banjul, they're doing very well with the OIC and the Hakalan and the others, but it is still it has not solved the issues with feeder roads that the country has faced.
But something is being done.
Something is being done.
Yeah.
Something is being done, but now you get down to our tourism as well. What has been done to address the challenges that we have in attracting more tourists as we used to before? What efforts have been done in innovating, right, recreational facilities, and then selling Gambia outside in order to attract tourists, but selling Gambia in a way that is aligned with our culture, norms, beliefs, and religion. So today the airport, you go to Sierra Leone, they've built a new airport at Longe. You go to Accra, Ghana, they have built a new airport. You go to Nigeria, they built a new airport. You go to Togo, they built a new airport, right? ours, we're still maintaining the airport that we've known ever since. And we put 4.5 million.
Should that be a priority for the government, building a new airport?
It should be a priority, because if you want to make Gambia a transit destination, this airport is not suitable for a transit destination, right? Dakar built a new airport from Leopold Sedar Senghor to DSS, right? And then you have more flights going in. Look, airlines are not stupid, right? Airlines companies are not going to be bringing their carriers in a country that do not have the facilities. You understand? There was a time that there are certain airlines that were in fact complaining that if they do not clean the debris at the airport, they will not be coming. So you need to invest into the infrastructure. It was not necessary to spend $4.5 million to renovate the airport. Hence, you go to the waiting hall where the passengers and their families will get into first. There is no AC. You have fan blowing all around. $4.5 million spent. So, look, that's not the way you attract tourists. The same airport and air travel that we were talking about, Sierra Leone just bought a new carrier, fleet of aeroplanes. That was an opportunity for us to tap into, right? The only flight that carries passengers from Gambia within West Africa is Askai. Now, Sierra Leone is in the picture, and they will be bringing passengers to the Gambia and other parts of West Africa. Senegal also did that. I guess, was it 2014 or 2016 with Air Senegal? We had the opportunity to outsmart Senegal and outdo Senegal because the Air Senegal was still not doing very well. So what happened? Right? Why is it a struggle that there is no direct flight coming to Gambia except for the tourist flight? Brosses that used to come here directly now have to go through Senegal first. So, look, we have to be very innovative, right? And I just talk about the tourism sector, but there are other several, the fisheries industry as well.
We will get to that, and we will look at the allocations for each of these sectors. But let's look at the budget formulation in this country. I mean, you've traveled around the world. I mean, do you think our system is in compliance with international standards in terms of budget formulation, how we formulate our budget?
So we have tried working with different ministries to introduce what we call participatory budgeting, and we've also done this with local councils, KMC and Janjambure Area Council to be specific. And the whole idea of this participatory and open budget dialogue platform is for the budget planners to get to the people, ask the people what their issues are. Even the issues might vary, and then there are, a matter of prioritization. Now, when the people prioritize the core issues, you put that in your report, and that report will inform the preparation of your fiscal budget, the subsequent fiscal budget, right? Now, once you do that, you have to go back to the people and then inform the people, well, from our consultations, these are the core priorities that these are the input that we have received from the citizens, these are the core priorities that they have prioritized, and this is what we are able to fund given the limited amount of money that we have. So the citizens will know that their participation is not in vain. The citizen will also know by that fiscal year, the core issues that have been prioritized are going to be addressed, right? So that is not the pure participatory budgeting that we are seeing, though efforts have been done to open it up, but I think they could do better.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at your assessment in terms of our projected revenue for the budget. I mean, I have a copy here, and when you look at the estimates, I mean, 71.44% will come from the local fund. We have loan 4.7%. We have grant 23.86%. I mean, 37 million local fund, 2 billion. I mean, 37 billion, 2 billion, 12 billion. I mean, we're still relying on loan and grants.
No, definitely.
Are not guaranteed, actually. I mean,
definitely, and I will give you from 2020 how they have been projecting revenue collection, depending, obviously, including the loans and then the grants. But it has not been materializing, right? You look at
Are you saying these targets are not realistic?
I mean, they're just forecasts, they're projections,
Okay.
right? And to be realistic, I will give you the actual figures from 2020 when they approved 33.4 billion, but end up receiving $16.8 billion, right? Which is about 50% revenue collected from what has been forecasted. 2021 they forecasted 35.1, but end up receiving 21.9 billion. 35.3 billion was projected in 2022, and they end up receiving or collecting 21.5 billion. 2023, they estimated 38.5 billion, but only end up receiving 21.2 billion. So we should not be carried away with all of these numbers. We have to go deep down and then look at the actuals that they have been receiving. So from the 230, I mean, if they are able to receive or collect the 42 billion that has been forecasted for 2024, which is highly unlikely, and the 52.9 billion that they also forecasted as revenue collection for 2025, which is also highly unlikely. From 2020 to 2025, that will be about 237.2 billion that has been forecasted for revenue. Now, like I said, including 2024 and 2025, if they receive those revenue that have been forecasted, it will be a total of 176.3 billion dollars, as opposed to the 237.2 billion that they forecasted. So, which will be about 74% of the revenue collection between 2020 and 2025.
And when you look at the budget, I mean, will you say it is business friendly?
Business friendly as in?
The taxes. It's a tax-based economy.
It is a tax-based economy.
So
it is a tax.
We expect.
It is a tax-based economy, and you know we've seen tax collection and in the 2025 budget increasing. And I think Askanwi also did their projection that there's going to be tax increment of about 23 or 26%.
Yeah, because according to the minister, tax revenue is expected to increase by 23%, primarily driven by what he said, continued tax policy alignment, policy action to support tax compliance, and the implementation of digital solutions to improve administration.
Okay, that wouldn't mean
tax increment. Okay,
that will mean putting stringent measures in order to make sure there is tax compliance. The ones that are not paying tax, pay tax, which is good. So I think it's important that you make that clarification. And I totally support that. I think, you know, people need to pay tax because we are limited in resources. Taxes have to be paid. And those taxes that are paid is what is keeping the government running, right? The other supplements that we are receiving, donor funds, help us in other developmental projects. So I think that is really smart, and I think GRA also has to be commended for the work that they have been doing. Yeah. They received almost 20 billion, I guess.
And the target was 19 billion dollars for this year.
So, and this is the first time that we get into the 20s collecting that form of revenue from taxes, right, and other charges. So, I think that is smart. Yeah.
I mean, I have the estimates here. I mean, when you look at it, you see National Debt Service $11 billion.
Yes, I raised this, and it really
continues to attract the largest allocation.
And the highest that we have ever allocated for debt servicing. And you have to also know that the budget is divided into two. Yeah. You have what they call the government local fund, and then also the all funds, which includes project grants, loans, and then budget support. Now, what the government is guaranteed that they will receive that amount is the $37.8 billion, which is the GLF, right? And from that amount, they are going to be paying $11 billion.
And that's like 29% of the budget.
So they will be left with 26.4 billion. And from that 26.8 billion rather, from that 26.8 billion, they will be spending 4.5 billion on capital expenditure, which is the developments and other infrastructural development that the citizens will expect, which also includes agriculture, road construction, bridges, and then you name it. So whereas we do not receive this 52.9 billion, we are going to be looking at this 37.8 billion, which also do not guarantee that we will receive the revenue in order to fund the government expenses, because we have to go back to history, especially 2020, what happened with COVID-19. 2020 was the year we received less revenue collection, right? We were targeting 33.4, but we only end up receiving 16.8 billion. And that's why you will also, but still, what happened was government ended up spending 19.1 billion dollars, even though we received only 16.8 because of the COVID-19.
But what does this tell about the government in terms of spending?
Well, this is well, I have a lot of concerns about how government spends in their allocations, and I, for example, give you one example. During COVID-19, the government vehicle expenditure approved amount was 100 million, but they end up spending 118 million. In 2021, they approved 56.3 million, but they end up spending 296 million. Mind you, 56 million was what was approved in 2021 during elections year, but they end up spending 296 million. In 2022, they approved 119, end up spending 207 million. 2023, they approved 109, and then end up spending 281 million. So 2020, they overspent their approved amount by 119%, 2021 by 526%, 2022 by 174%, and 2023 by 256%. Why all of these over expenditure on vehicles? You get into travels. They approved 275 million in 2020 because of COVID-19. They were only able to spend 80% of that amount, because there were restrictions in the movement of people. Because at the end of the day, government also don't have any choice, even if they wanted to travel.
There's a justification for traveling.
Yes. And 2021, they approved 252 million for travels, but end up spending 321 million dollars. 2023, they approved 279 million, but 374 million was spent. 279 million was approved, but they end up spending 387 million. So we have been overspending in our approved vehicle expenditures. We have been overspending in our approved travel expenditures. We have been overspending in the approved Meet the People store, which is also currently going. 2020, they put zero amount, but they end up spending $32 million. 2021, they approved 6 million, but end up spending $43 million. 2022, 6 million was also put into the national budget, but they end up spending 25 million. And the list goes on. 10 million in 2023, and they end up spending 61.3 million. And I wish there was a parliamentarian here, and I keep saying this, that what they approve does not reflect the actual expenditure at the end of the fiscal year, because money moves around through these environments.
Yeah.
And this is not healthy in any country that is limited with resources, that is limited with funds in order to develop the country.
So what measures do we need to put in place to be able to address this problem?
Well, first, the travels, they've put in, moratorium in minimizing the travels of government officials, but it's not working. This happened a couple of years ago, but yet still, with all the figures that I'm giving you, they have been overspending in the amounts that have been approved, right? The vehicles, if the government spent their approved amount for 2024 and 2025, it will mean that we will have $1.8 billion spent on vehicles alone between 2020 and 2025. $1.8 billion, almost $2 billion is, if they spend the 2024 approved and 2025 approved, almost $2 billion will be spent on vehicles alone. Is that sustainable? Why do we have to be spending every year on vehicles? This year alone, they wanted to spend $800 million on vehicles. So, and a good chunk of that money, I guess 403 million of that is going to be going into the repayment of the OIC vehicles. Do we need that? You've been going to these ECOWAS Parliament meetings. Each parliamentarian, do they give them a car to transport them to the conference center?
No.
It's not the case. So, and then even where we only have 6 presidents attending, and you bought 81 vehicles, for what?
But they didn't know there will be only 6 presidents coming.
Well, that's their fault.
How?
Because they've been going to meetings around the world, including the UNGA. They are not given a special car that transport them from their hotel to the conference center. They either walk or take a shuttle.
Yeah, but we wanted to show that, we host the best OIC summit. So
And you don't have the money.
Well, but
You didn't have the money.
we hosted the summit.
Huh?
But we hosted the summit.
You hosted somebody, you didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Is that how Senegal did it when they were hosting the summit?
Well, the realities might not be the same.
No,
Maybe Senegal might
you have to
Senegal might choose to host it the way they want, and Gambia might choose differently.
cut your clothes according to your size.
I quite agree with that, to be honest. I quite agree with you.
Now, what happened after the event? After you have already bought that, say, 81 million, 2 days after, what happened? What are you going to do with those cars?
Well, you give it to the institutions and keep orders for future events.
Future events
That's all we can do now.
No. They've messed up. To clean up their mess, let them auction those cars, recover the money, and then spend it somewhere else wiser.
Okay, let's now move on to something very critical, Mar. I mean, we have had the minister talk about the issue of 30% salary increment in the 2025 budget. What's your take before I get to my next question?
I think public officers deserve to be well remunerated. I think there should be a decent pay for public officials. I wrote an article analyzing how our public officials live in debt, right? Especially our hard-working public officials that spend 100% of their salary before midway of the month. And beyond the salary increment, I think today I was having that conversation here as well on QTV, that they should be given affordable housing scheme. Not only those in the government, but the Gambians as well deserve to have affordable housing scheme. So I don't have any problem with that. I should applaud that. But the most sustainable way of doing that is having a pay scale with minimum wage.
Total salary restructuring.
And they already have it. Because in 2021, PMO did that research. Government was to approve that amount, and then that will have informed the 2022 budget. But that 2021 in June, that's when they also decided to make this 30% increment across the board.
Yeah.
So this is still not sustainable, right? What should be done is to have a revised pay grade, right, with a minimum wage, at least $6,000 to $7,000 is minimum wage for our hardworking people in government.
But how about also, reforms in the public sector? We have so many ghost workers. You remember just a couple of months ago, the Minister of Public Affairs announced that they were able to detect over 2,000 ghost workers.
It's not new in our public workforce, right? These ghost workers, if they have taken stringent measures, they will have addressed this. In May of 2020, the Minister of Health also mentioned of the ghost people, the ghost allowance recipients in the list that was prepared by officials at the Ministry of Health. PMO also did a head count before then, right? And they realized that there were ghost workers, and I guess it was over 2,000, if I can remember the figures, ghost workers that were in the system, and they removed them. There were certain people that were working in the government, they travel outside, working, but they continue to receive their salaries. So also, they might not be, okay, you could call them ghost worker, but I think it also has to do with our accounting system. If someone else is no more working with you, remove that person from your staff list and then also the pay grade. So is it that the account officer is not doing the work that is required in order to make sure that they have up-to-date database with the total number of people that are working in a particular system, in a particular institution, and if they are transferred or if their contract got terminated, if they move to another institution that is not government, you update your system. So it's not only that it is a corruption scheme, but also it's because of the way that our system is also being managed. They should be able to work with institutions. If someone is from working at the Department of Health at the Ministry of Health, the person is no more there, you should update your system, and then that will also inform the Accountant General. And not only that, you've had not long ago when payments were being distributed, people were being overpaid. And some, I guess they did not return back the money. You understand? So all of this goes down to being courteous and not allowed to be negligent in dealing with the sensitive data.
But when you look at most of these institutions, one will say they are also overstaffed. I mean, you work in an institutions, you find like 10 people doing the same work.
I totally agree with you. I agree with you. Sometimes we hire based on the one that is doing it cannot do it.
Yeah.
And we have not developed the culture of getting rid of people that cannot do it. There was an audit that was done, and recommendation was made for certain local government officials to be kicked out of the system because they were accounting officers, finance officers, but they could not do basic accounting. They were using manual, physical books to do the accounting. And at the end, when the office catch fire or that particular book got soaked in water, you lose all your data.
Yeah.
So when you wanted to take stringent measures, you say, if I fire this guy, who's going to take care of his family? But then also look at the consequence it has on hundreds or thousands of people whose monies will have been misstated, and that misstatement affects the taxpayers. So we have not taken the measures that are required, and I don't think our government have that heart, or our government is bold enough to come up and then say, look, you cannot do it, we're going to save you the trouble, right? You get that person out and bring in someone else that is competent to do that job, right? If you are sorry for what has happened to that particular person, why not find a way to support them? If you cannot, then it is what it is.
Mar, let's look at the allocations of some key sectors, such as, agriculture, education, and health. On the estimates we've seen, as usual, Minister of Basic and Secondary Education is allocated in the estimate $5 billion. Agriculture, as important as it is allocated $945 million. In works and infrastructure, $2 billion. Office of the President, $1 billion. Do this meet the country's need?
Well, it is a very good question. So that 945 million that you just cited is coming from the government local fund. But you get to the old fund, you will see that it increased by 5.1 billion, which makes it $6.1 billion, which means our agricultural sector is dependent on donor funds. So if there is no donor funds coming to support our agricultural development programs, we will only be left 945 million. If you look at the disaggregation of how those monies are going to be distributed, you realize that a good chunk of it goes into the upkeep of the office. So it is sad that the agricultural sector have to be dependent, and obviously because they're expecting that there is money that is going to come. But like I said, I started this before. 2020 taught us a lesson, right? We have the Ukraine-Russia war that is ongoing. We have the unbelievable full invasion of Gaza that is also ongoing. We have other countries. Sudan is having a crisis, and then other countries, you name it. So donors will reprioritize their priorities and then put money where there are crises. We don't have those crises, security crisis. What we have is an economic crisis and democratic crisis. So they will prioritize where people are losing their lives, being killed, blatantly, then out. So I think we should not be too optimistic and too dependent, especially one of our most core economic-driven sector, agriculture, being dependent on donor funds. What happens if they don't receive those monies?
And youth and sports, $133 million is?
And this has been
How
the concern.
serious are we as far as sports development and, of course, youth empowerment?
This has been the concerns of many young people. And the government keep giving excuses. Oh, youth and young people and women, they are catered in all the other
That's
ministries.
what they'll tell you. Yeah.
But sport is not catered in all the funds, apart from what the Gambia Football Federation received from FIFA, right? But it also tells a lot. Figures don't lie. Look at what happened with our Scorpion team, right? I'm confident that if they were playing home, they would have qualified for this AFCON, right? If there was good management, they would have qualified for the AFCON, and most likely for the World Cup. They are playing in foreign countries. You pay more money, right? Gambians don't have the luxury to travel all the way to Morocco and then cheer their supporters. Only the ones that are funded could go in and cheer their supporters, right? If they're going away, only the ones that are funded.
And in fact, in most cases, those are Gambians in Morocco who they will just mobilize and facilitate their movement.
And my question was, why didn't, no matter how expensive Senegal could be, which is not going to be more expensive than all the expenditure that they put in place to travel to Morocco, why not go to Senegal?
Maybe also they are looking at the strategic location of Morocco. I mean, it's a hub where all these players can just fly from that different destinations and just stay to Morocco. But beyond that, I mean, the state of our infrastructure.
But Senegal, how about Senegal? Can't we use the stadium at Blaise Diagne? And then our citizens will be traveling over there and watch. You will have hundreds or if not thousands of Gambians traveling to Senegal to watch the AFCON, and that they will pay tickets. Senegalese will also pay tickets to come and cheer their sister country.
But coming back, let's look at the budget allocation for the development of sports. Are we doing enough?
No, we're not doing enough. Look, and the budget is not that detailed enough to tell you how much is going to go into track sports, right? The Ginebas and the others, the track sport that they do, how much is going to get into there? How much is going to be spent in order to promote swimming, right? Which is an Olympic, competition sort of. Are we putting money to introduce those sports? Are we putting money to introduce and get Gambians, obviously, not introduce, get Gambians to be more involved in pole vault? Are we doing that to encourage more Gambians to get into basketball? Senegal, their female, not even talking about the male team, their female teams are making it to international competition in basketball. Yeah. So, look, we should not only focus on sport. And we should not only focus on football. Because of football, many Gambians get into the professional world of soccer, and they are investing back their money, and they contributing to the infrastructural development of this country, and then also remittances of this country. So you have achieved that. How about we transition, maybe to pole vault, maybe to marathon, right? Maybe encourage more Ginabasis to be coming from the Gambia. That's how you sell the Gambia. Look at the lady, I forgot the name, I'm not very good, I might have a very bad memory, but the lady from one of these Central America or South American country where they have a population of about 500,000, with the 200 meters, she came first. And it put the name of the country. I was getting to know the country for the first time.
The fact of the matter is that sports is not just about leisure now or pleasure.
It's business.
It's a business, and it requires that right investment.
And you have to invest into it. Yeah. You have to invest into the infrastructure. I'm not going to go far. You go to Senegal, every strategic location around the coastal areas, you see them installing, and this is not the central government. This also has to do with our local government, KMC included, and Brikama Area Council included. These councils are installing laser and exercise material, gym materials.
Yes, everywhere, even on the beach.
You understand? And it's encouraging people to get in there, to do exercise, get into different sports. These are the ways that you encourage people to get into sports. And when you invest, obviously, you will reap the return on investment. So, sports, to answer your question, I don't think we have done much. I don't think we have done much in order to develop our infrastructure. The stadium, for me, I think it was a waste of money. To spend money into the refurbishment of the stadium is not sustainable. What Senegal has done, that money did not come from the Senegalese government. They get into a partnership, money is given to them, and they develop the infrastructure, and they be paying back. Even their payers, they've been paying back that money. Can't we get into that? Leopold Sédar Senghor is just used now for what? Minor games.
Yeah. But I mean, when you look at the budget, do you think it can tackle the issue of cost of living, of course, if any, and of course, even inflation concerns?
No, it wouldn't address the issue of cost of living, because Gambia do not have the control over what comes in here, the prices of goods, right? Everything, almost 90% of our things that we consumed are imported into this country, right? And you cannot control the price unless and until you do one thing. You put in subsidies, like they've been doing with fuel, to reduce the amount. Now they cannot. In fact, they've reduced the subsidy that they've been putting into fuel, right? And if 90% of what you consume is being imported from outside, you cannot control the inflation. And then also, if your currency is not doing well, and the currency that you're using CFA to buy products from the CFA zones in Africa, in West Africa to be specific, especially Senegal, you're using US dollars to purchase trading goods from outside the country. What is the dollar rate right now? And it keeps increasing, and the dollar C is not matching the speed at which the dollar is advancing. So no, it will not. The budget will not address that.
So what do you think are the potential risks or challenges in achieving the goals, like I said, set out in the 2025 budget by the minister? Like I said earlier on, he said, this budget is anchored on reduction of what he called debt vulnerability.
That's why they're putting more money into it, and they're also trying to reduce the amount of loan that they're taking this year. But look, I think what we need to be doing is good that GRA is taking all of these measures in order to increase revenue collection in this country. But most importantly as well, apart from taxes and loans and grants and budget support, can we also invest into other areas? And I did mention air travel, and I mentioned selling Gambia as a more competitive tourism hub, because Senegal is outplaying us. Cape Verde is outplaying. In fact, look, you could do internal, citizen tourism sort of.
Like in Kenya.
Yeah, exactly. They have parks. People go into these parks. Look,
unfortunately, what do we have in this country other than the beach and what else?
We have Katong.
And what else? Nothing more. Yeah, you have tourists coming to the country, they cross over the border to go to somewhere else to go and see all these animals.
But even crossing to the border now is a nightmare. They wouldn't cross to the border, right? Look,
so there's a lot to fix.
And in fact, the tourism sector, right? If all of those looks like rocket science to them to achieve, build museums.
But this is a sector that accounts for almost 25% of our GDP.
Yeah, build museums, right? Political museums. I don't want to sound crazy, but what the Ajame did in this country, is a source of revenue for this country. How? Build museums, just like they did in Uganda. What Idi Amin did, they are museums to explain to tourists what has happened. In fact, that will also be an education source of education and knowledge for students that are going for excursion. Now you don't have to be doing, since when we are young, doing the same thing, going to what's the name again? I'm not good with names. Kunta Kinte's village, Albreda, Jufre. Going to those places and Fort Bulen and
Wasu and all those places.
Look, those ones are already let's get museums. I get to certain countries and I get into the museum. Everyone is claiming that this is the origin of mankind. What is our story? Why not we also have museum to celebrate our Nelson Mandela of this country? Saudara Kairaba Jawara, the Edward Francis Small, and Per Sarnjai, and then you name it. You understand? Let's invest into that and have these museums around. And then get into another, river transportation as well. You understand? Gambians are doing the local tourism. You don't have to be spending much money.
Because for me, I always tell people, I mean, with all, you can say whatever against Jamie, but most of the things that he left in Kanilai, those animals, those things, if they were really protected and kept, man, if you have tourists coming to the country, why would they cross to go to Senegal? Is it Fata? How they call the place?
Yeah, Fata.
Yeah, exactly. So, you could have just, drive to Kanilai, go and see these animals and come back to a hotel. And they could have earned more money for the country. And
that came before
exactly.
the Abuko Nature Reserve was there. But
where's Abuko Nature Reserve now?
What killed it? This was corruption. You had the report of how those cattle were stolen, how those animals were stolen. So, look, we have a problem of patriotism and we have a problem of accountability and seriousness in this country. We take things for granted and it fires back, right? There's nothing more fun, again, in this country. The only mall that you could call a standard mall that you have in this country is the Tropic Mall.
Yeah.
Right? Why can't we have shopping centers? You have, it's sad. When tourists come here, there are two main shopping centers in Serakunda Market, which is unbearable as we speak. Dirt everywhere and less control with cases of theft and then you name it. So people have to be extra cautious, even if they are citizens, to get into the market and then do their shopping. Number one. Number two is our craft markets, right? Which I think could be advanced. So why not we build another? You go to Tropic, every time it's busy. Let's move.
Well, I can tell you for sure, a standard what is being built by a private Gambian, and if it's ready, it's something that everyone will appreciate.
Which is fantastic.
That I can tell you. But Mar, as a member of the civil society, you have a huge role to play in monitoring, budget implementation. What is wrong with the CSOs? It seems we are all quiet.
No, we're not quiet.
What are you doing to monitor the budget?
We're not quiet. If we are not monitoring the budget, I would not have given you all of these figures.
Yeah, but you are just one of many out there who could have been doing the similar job you are doing.
Well, we try. In fact, that's why at Gambia Participate, over these past years, we have trained over 200 people from 2017 to date. We used to have what we call NACET, National Anti-Corruption Civic Education and Engagement Training. And then just last year in September, we've trained about 50 people. And before then as well, we've trained civil society and journalists, to be specific, on budget tracking and budget reporting, because we realized that there was a gap, right, in the civil society space. And in fact, in the media space. And now, I'm glad that you are here talking about the budget. Others are also talking about the budget. We've done so much effort in bringing in fact, international budget partnership. We brought international budget partnership, the one that conducts the world's largest open budget survey, and trained Gambians here. That was also last year or year before last, in 2023, on how to calculate GDP, how to understand government allocation, what approved means, what estimate means, what actual means. We did all of that. So, and I'm also training. I did train certain organizations like FNET, right? They also doing education budget tracking. So they are doing. Maybe you are not seeing it happen.
Well, you even do it for National Assembly members as well.
I did also. We also do the same thing for the National Assembly. So we've been doing much, and hopefully we get to see more civil society actors coming in to do the fiscal space, so that they will also save us the trouble. Because
so what do you do with your findings? When you monitor the budget implementation, who do you share your findings with?
Parliamentarians. We do that. Certain parliamentarians, we have private conversation. That's not for me to talk about here, but we provide our analysis to individual parliamentarians for them to get to see. And then every year when the budget comes, we have parliamentarians that will reach out, and then we give them our pro bono analysis.
Okay, and that's what they use in Parliament to make noise, right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because you have to know that not all of those parliamentarians are expert in public finance. Okay. And this budget is super complicated. for an economist also to digest. There are trillions of digits that you need to be looking at. Right? And you have to make sure that you are careful when you're talking about these figures. So you have to understand that. So the support, I mean, that's the mandate of civil society. Right? You support your parliament, and most of these parliaments are from your constituency. So you support them, you give it to them. It's not always about what parliamentarians are doing for what they are doing, but you also bring in solutions that they could also look into.
So what do you find to be more challenging in this budget monitoring and implementation? So I know this of accountability, transparency is a problem.
Yeah.
How much are they willing to share this information as far as the budget implementation is concerned? Like you said, in this country, it's more like top-bottom approach. You know, it doesn't start from the grassroots where you go and establish what people want.
Yeah. In terms of the preparation of the budget, the participation is advancing a little bit, right? As in, but this is not pure participatory budgeting, like I mentioned earlier. When they are publishing or disseminating the citizens' budget, they will bring the Minister of Finance will bring the ministries, also bring in citizens, civil society, and media to have conversation with the ministries, and they will be critiquing the budget, which is good. So the participation is also opening up. National Assembly, when they're having their retreats, that they engage civil society, they will invite us and they will participate in it. Now, the other challenge is the timely availability of audit reports.
Yeah.
Right? And we have our latest audit report, I guess it's 2020 or 2021.
How many years ago?
Yeah, and we are 2024. Someone will be pointing fingers at the National Audit Office, but National Audit Office will tell you we will only audit when the government presents their account statements. What is keeping the Accountant General from preparing the account statements and then giving it to National Audit Office, but also National Audit Office, when they audit, what is keeping the Parliament in approving or considering those audit reports on time? And that's, we went to court, and we are still in court, and because of that, what we are trying to achieve here is we want the Supreme Court to interpret Section 161E of the Constitution, which have a very vague language, where it says that if the Auditor General prepares his audit report and takes it to Parliament, whereas the Parliament did not consider that on time, and in this case they use undue delay in considering the auditor's report, the National Audit Office can publish. But we don't know what undue delay is. So we are also pushing to make sure that there's publication of audit reports on time, so that we could use that. Because every audit report that is published, we use it and then make information and put it. In fact, my communication team has started doing very interesting youth-centric work where they're using TikTok to disseminate this information in a very funny and interesting way.
Or is it because people don't take audit reports serious? We have had people say it's just an opinion.
Well, I think it's more than just an opinion.
Okay.
Audit reports are just more than an opinion. It's like you doing your investigation and then you have your facts. After you gather your facts, you give it to the auditee and then tell them this is what we have found, and you give them the opportunity to respond back to what you have found. Now, if the auditor gets it wrong, now the one that you have audited will say this is not correct, here are the evidences. Now the auditor will go and revise that. So it's more than just an opinion. The opinion does not rain from the sky. The opinion is driven by data and facts and evidences.
As we speak, the Parliament, I think they're presenting their report tomorrow, the PACPEC committee. They have been having their bilaterals with institutions. I mean, when you look at these allocations, which sector will you look at and say, no, I wish they add something to this sector?
That's a very tough question.
One of the sectors, one or two.
I think the agricultural sector, the 945 million coming from GLF is very small. The health sector, I think they should put in more money, but with red flag. Put in more money into areas that will expand our already struggling health system, right? We have Banjo, we have Bansang, we have Demban, we have Sarakunda Hospital. We should do more. LRA the hospital in regional in summer hospitals should be, well refurbished. It should be furnished with medical materials in order to also avoid citizens struggling to travel in this dilapidated road network from Southern Bank coming all the way to Greater Banjul. And there should be CT scans everywhere. It's not rocket science. This budget can get up to 3 to 4 CT scans. You understand? And then when pregnant women want to do the scanning of their pregnancy, this should be available, distributed everywhere. In fact, technology has advanced. This should not be something difficult, right? You go to Serakunda certain times, they are not there. They refer you to go to to a private clinic or so. Look, I think our patients should be confident that when they go to the clinics.
Or is it because people who matters don't actually go to these public hospitals where you and I go?
That's why I said we should have confidence. Because today, if you're sick and then you go to this particular public health center, you will not have medications, right? Or they will perhaps give you an incorrect laboratory results. You lose confidence and you go to a private clinic, no matter how expensive it is. You go there in order to have peace of mind,
country,
which is not helpful, right? We always been going to Senegal. How did Senegal did it? Not only Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and the likes traveling to Senegal to get treated. Why can't we do that here? So it's about prioritizing how you spend and not being comfortable within this circle that we are living in. Oh, we are trying to do this. No, break it and make it better, or build it, break and build it. If it's not working, put it aside. And then, so we have to be radical in the way we do this.
Will you look at any sector here and say it is over budgeted for?
It depends on I wouldn't just say they are over budgeted, because when they have their approved, you need to get down and look at from that approved amount the expenditures that do not make sense. Then you say this doesn't make sense.
I know maybe someone watching this program may disagree with having over $1 billion is for the office of the president. Do you agree?
Like I said, for example, in that $1 billion, you're putting $50 million for the Meet the People store, which over the past years, if they spend the 2024 and the 2025, it will be like they have spent $241 million on the Meet the People store. What has it achieved?
But it's a constitutional requirement that the president must go and interact with Gambians. You might talk about the amount, but constitutionally,
the Constitution says the president should conduct and go to around the country twice in a year to familiarize himself,
at least
twice a year, to familiarize himself with the impact of government policies on the people, and to also get the needs of the people. It's not like that. It's not. It should be a participatory budgeting. I think that is the idea of the drafters. That is the intent of the drafters, to go there, understand what the issues are, and then you use that to inform your subsequent budget. It's not where you should go and then say, "Sumo computer bisutange, I will do this or that." No, look, it's political, and it's not supposed to be political. And you look at this Meet the People store. I wrote a paper on this. If you look at this Meet the People store, especially during election, you know what they will do? They will wait at. There is a campaign regulation. Yeah. IEC will publish the campaign schedule. Now you are only able to campaign during a specific given time. What they do in 2021, they waited until a month before the campaign period, and they went for the Meet the People store.
Well,
and
the Constitution doesn't give a time frame to say the president you have to go on for this
but
month.
The Constitution
at least twice a year. So,
but the Constitution says what you should do during the Meet the People store. The Constitution, but they don't do that. And I have a report. It's available on our Gambia Participatory website. Every single politically motivated word that they said is on our website.
But Mar, one will say whatever the president does is political. You cannot remove politics out of it.
In contravention to the supreme law of the land.
Yeah, because people will say whatever he does is political.
No,
If he construct a
yeah.
road, it's politics.
Yeah.
Whatever he does, I mean, it's politics because he wants to win the trust and vote of the people.
I agree
Yeah,
on
exactly,
that.
in that context, yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
but within the laws of the land.
Yeah.
If it goes beyond the laws of the land, and that's what the incumbency advantage that the continent is always talking about. That's it. And then I classify that under illicit campaign financing because you use the people's money, and then you conduct your meet the people's store, lure votes. And this has happened in 2020 during the by-election in Nyamina, where the transfers, the NAFA payment, were done 2 nights before the elections. Or in fact, a night before the elections. It happened. So these are illegal. It's an incumbency advantage.
Well, Mar, we're out of time, but just your final message to Gambians and National Assembly members who are going to approve this budget, their role in monitoring and ensuring, what's being approved is spent in the where it should go. I mean, I know it's always a problem in this country. As we speak, there are so many workshops everywhere. People are busy clearing their budgets. So,
the second most critical, important document of every country is the budget. The constitution regulates human behavior, but what also funds the implementation of that constitution is the budget. So this is very critical, and I think, not that I think at Gambia, but this is the reason why we always give a lot of focus on the budget, educating people, putting out information out there, and then telling people how much is spent. But at the same time as well, people always say government is corrupt. I totally disagree. Government is not entirely corrupt. There are those that want to do well. And most of this corruption that happens, some of them borrow, some of them borrow don't know. So our own institutions have to be resilient to corruption. Our own institutions have to make sure they...
But is he doing much about the one he knows about?
Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mar Nyang, who is the Executive Director of Gambia Participatory, was my guest on this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire production team. Thank you so much.